The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we celebrate the incredible resilience of mothers, showing up through life's challenges, growing through every triumph, and carving out space for their own passions and identity. We're here to uplift and reassure every mom that you are not alone, and asking for help is a powerful strength. Each episode brings a new story of motherhood's beautiful chaos. I'm happy you can join us for today's inspiring journey. And today's guest is Laura. Laura, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. And just for those who maybe haven't seen the show before, the aim of the show really is to be a resource and a support for mothers, locally and globally. And to do that through telling life experiences and in story form. So we learn so much through stories. And so hopefully in talking to you today, viewers and you and I can learn some things and feel less alone and feel empowered and ready to get after being resilient and keep showing up for our kids and our families. And so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who you are, share some of your background so that when we get into talking about your journey through motherhood and your personal and professional pursuits, we have some background to know who you are.
Sure.
Share as much or as little as you are comfortable with.
Okay, great. So I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
And I came from I guess you'd call it a lower middle class family. My dad owned his own business. It was a small business. He did TV repair.
Okay.
My mom was pretty much stay-at-home mom until they opened the business, and then she would help him. So a lot of what I've learned as a mom is kind of from watching my mom, who I didn't really appreciate enough until now. Mm-hmm. My brother and I often talk about that, where I'm like, I just never realized, the struggles she went through in her life. And, as a kid, you're just kind of like doing your own thing and not, and then my husband was in the Air Force, so we met in Omaha. He was stationed there, and when we got married there, and we then moved to Washington, D.C., and so for me, I was ready to do it, but I had to give up my job, and we then, before that, I graduated from the University of Nebraska at Omaha with a biology psychology degree.
Oh, nice.
And my job there was I worked with a transplant team, and I coordinated organ recovery for transplant.
My gosh.
Yeah, I know. I said they're like, what? Never thought of that. And so that's what I was doing. I had my first child, and then he got reassigned to D.C., so we moved out there, and then he decided to separate from the Air Force. We have 3 kids, so I had 2 in Omaha, and then we moved to Madison area. We're in Sun Prairie, and that's where I had my 3rd daughter, who was a surprise. She knows that, so.
That's all been worked out.
Yeah. So then I had to change jobs again, but it was okay. I mean, I was ready to do it. So,
yeah. So growing up in Omaha, you mentioned you had a brother.
Yeah, I have 5 siblings.
Okay.
We were a mixed family.
Sure.
So my younger brother and I have the same parents, but then the rest of us had different moms, and my mom and dad had relationships before that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
so you have older siblings. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you were so that's an interesting way to grow up too.
Yes,
I mean,
it was.
You didn't really know any of that by the time you came along. That had been They were just a cohesive family at that
Well,
point,
we
or
really
no?
weren't, because my one sister lived with us, but then the other siblings, 2 of them came to live with us when they were teenagers.
Okay.
So you can imagine that dynamic.
Yeah.
They were all older than me and my younger brother, but it was interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to merge, because people have to adjust, and as humans, we like what's comfortable.
Right.
So, but then you have 3 older siblings at home, and then in school, did you play sports? Did you do activities? Or?
I loved school. I loved learning. So I was kind of like the one on the debate team.
Yeah.
And okay, I joined the math club only so I could get a good grade in calculus because we got extra credit for that.
Yeah.
But so I enjoyed doing stuff like that. I wasn't really into sports, but I love watching sports. But I did help in the drama. Like I was the props person for the musicals and things like that. So
yeah, those are fun activities.
Yeah.
And debate and math. I mean, exercise your brain. Of course. So then, what led you into or deciding on biology psychology? Was there some pull to that, or just?
There was, because I'm a huge animal lover, and so all our goals kind of change around. But I wanted to be a veterinarian. That's really what I wanted to do. And so I got my biology degree, but money and those kinds of things just weren't in it. And so I stayed at home. There wasn't a vet school there. So that's when I got my biology degree. And then I met my husband, and that's kind of how it led down that path. And I knew someone who worked for it's called an organ procurement agency.
Yes.
And that was my first job out of college. And that's kind of how that path, I loved that job.
Yeah, not many people have that job. Can you talk a little bit about what that job was like, and especially at that age?
Yeah, I was very young.
It's new in life as an adult to really comprehend what the massive impact of just organ donation.
I think I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
And the other part of that is I'm a huge introvert. A lot of people that know me don't realize that. But, and so I'm one to believe to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's what helps you grow. So I went for it. And I remember in my interview, they said, well, how do you feel about flying? So remember, I'm like 22.
Right.
23 maybe. And I said, I have no qualms about that. I'd never been on an airplane. I didn't have any qualms, but I'd never been on one. So I kind of got I think they hired me because I was cheap.
Right, yeah, and willing
right out of college. I'm willing to learn. I think that's really important. And so, I was on call all the time. I took the calls. So I worked with the liver, kidney, heart, pancreas transplant programs with the university. But we were a separate nonprofit, and we had a contract with them. And so then they would call me or whoever was on call, which there was only 3 of us at the time, and give me the information. There was a donor. Usually at that time, and this was a while ago, it could be anywhere in the country. And then I would coordinate with the surgeons. They would determine if it would meet the needs for their patient.
Oh, right.
So I would have to get all the medical information and all that. And then if they said yes, then I'd call the transportation and all that, coordinate with the donor hospital, which could be anywhere. And then we'd fly out there. And at one time I was doing 3 or 4 of those a week.
Wow.
Flying out to anywhere. We flew as far as Canada, DC, California, Florida.
That is an adventure.
It was.
Oh my
I
gosh.
loved it. It was very stressful, but I loved it. I learned
the timing,
so much.
what's riding on that.
Yeah.
And
a lot of responsibility. And looking back, I'm like, they really put a lot of faith into me.
I was going to say,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I can't believe
Yeah.
But at the time, you don't think that.
No, I was just very stressed.
Yeah.
It was so stressful.
A good introduction to the work world.
Yeah. But I loved it. And then I got to go to meetings around the country to continuing education. And
Sure.
I got to meet a lot of different people. And I loved it. So.
Did you ever meet any of the recipients of the? Yeah.
So as I progressed in that, career, I started doing public education and workshops for medical professionals. And so we had quite a few recipients that would go, that would help us with that. So they'd come and talk about their story. And one of them I'm still friends with. She had her heart transplant in 1986 or 87, maybe 87. and she's still doing great. Her daughter
That's
was
amazing.
5 years old. She had 24 hours to live, and they found a heart for her that was a match, and that was in 1987, and she's still doing great today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and now her daughter has kids graduating from high school. So
That is amazing.
yeah, it was a real
Just one
fulfilling job.
Yeah, right out of the chute. I mean,
Yeah.
right into the work world with that.
Right.
So then you met your husband, and then he was in the service.
Yep,
and
was in the Air Force.
So you had to leave, or were you there for a while?
So we got married, and we had our first daughter, and then my son was, so she was 3, and then he was a newborn when we got transferred. In fact, I was pregnant at the time, and I had some complications with my first pregnancy, so I had went to so he had to get, I don't remember all the official words, but he had to get like a permission that we could stay. He was supposed to go to D.C., and I was still pregnant, but I wanted to stay there with my doctor because in case there were any complications with my son. And then he was born in May, and we moved in Labor Day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he was like 2 months old. And my husband went out there first, so we talk about being a mom. I was back at work. I had a newborn. I had my daughter I was trying to take to daycare, and we were trying to sell stuff in our house. And so I still remember I was in the garage holding my son, trying to breastfeed him while I'm reading the numbers off the saw in the, like a bandsaw or something we were trying to sell. And like I look back, I'm like, I don't know how I did all that stuff.
This is what the show is about.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that.
Yeah.
You just
do it.
You do it, and you don't know you can do it until you're in the throes of it. And you start to realize, actually you don't even realize it then. But in retrospect, you think, how capable am I to have made it through that? And
I often think that. I'm like, how did I do that? I was younger, obviously, but you just do. I'd had 2 daycares, a job, breastfeeding, like you get up in the morning and you pump and you feed the baby, and then you go and then come home, do it all over again. So
part of that when they're really little too is you're not thinking about what you're immersed in. Right. I think, you can go off track when that starts to happen. If you start to sort of like be aware. Right. That can feel overwhelming. Yeah. But if you get up and do, and that maybe is like a tip. It's like,
just do it.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Use the time and the energy you would take to consider and be caught up in and physically or, do something with that time. It has to get done. I mean, it will still be there when you're done thinking about it. So it's just, push through and do it. And I think that's what the first, maybe 5 years, 0 to 5, is just getting up and doing.
But we talk about, we should also take care of ourselves, and we don't.
No.
And I did at that time realize what my limit was, so I went to my employer, because I was going to be leaving anyway, and I had been there a while, and I had a lot of vacation. I said, can I use some of my vacation time, like an hour a day, so I can, get to the daycare and take care of all that? And they were very willing to do that for me, so I was very appreciative of that. So I ended up cutting my days a little shorter, so I could get all that stuff done.
Yeah, that's smart. And I think, too, you don't know. You shouldn't always assume somebody's going to say no. Because if you're a producer and you're doing something good for your employer, and I mean, you have to do that part of it. You have to be coming to work and being a good employee and doing what they need. But maybe you're a little more efficient than what they planned, so you can negotiate some of that.
Well, and I think moms are more efficient because they do juggle so many things. Often people will say, well, how do you get all that done? It's like, well, I have to stay organized and do what I got to do, because I don't have that wiggle room. So.
No. And then we put another thing in there.
Yeah.
We always say, oh, yeah, I can do it. So, yeah, okay. So then you stayed and you had your son and then moved to D.C. And how was that?
To be honest, I hated it.
I think it's either for you or not.
It's for you if you don't have young children. So I didn't have a job, and we lived on base, and I didn't know anyone, and I had a 2-month-old and a 3-year-old, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. I mean, I love my kids, and part of it was financial too. I decided I was going to find a job because I didn't know, a lot of times work is where we find our friends.
Right.
And when you move to a totally different part of the country that you're not used to, the culture was a little different. Everything was different. Driving was crazy. And it was hard to do anything out there, having kids.
Right.
If I was by myself, I could hop on the metro and go do stuff.
Oh, sure.
But with the kids, you'd have to get them in the car, and traffic was terrible. So I ended up finding my niche or whatever. I ended up working for the Red Cross out there, and in their tissue services, which is similar to what not really similar, but so we distributed tissue to dentists and oral maxillofacial surgeons.
Okay.
Bone tissue that's donated.
Okay.
And so I worked at the Red Cross in Arlington. We lived on base in D.C. It was only 7 miles, but my commute every day was 45 minutes on a good day. Yeah. But I found that the Air Force really had a good day care system.
Okay.
So they certified their own, and it was other moms in the, or mostly moms, that had daycare, and they were certified by the Air Force system, the child, it's a while ago, so I can't remember all their names, but so they found me, I found a good daycare, and
Good.
yeah, so I always felt like it was important for my kids to see that I was doing something I enjoyed too. So
we talk about that too. It's so important. You sacrifice so much of yourself, and you should. But not everything. And then in those early years, when it's so critical, it's obviously critical through all of development, but those early years with attachment and everything, sometimes you just get lost and forget that you had a job or you did do things before you had kids. And so to stay tethered to that world in some way, maybe in some way that's easier now too, with just all the access we have to see everything all the time or connect with people, at least virtually. But this wasn't then, and so, I stayed home too twice, and it just I was like, this is so isolating.
it was.
And if you're a social person too, you need that connection, or if you're fueled by interacting with other people.
And I like learning, and I like, not that you can't do that, and I applaud moms that stay home.
Of course.
That's like a really hard job, and I don't. But for me, I liked working, and it gave me more appreciation for my kids when I came home. And
it's hard to miss them when they're like permanently Velcroed to you. It's hard to remember.
all those diapers.
It's hard to remember, But even if you leave for a little while and come back, it's like, oh yeah, you know, just that great feeling. So you need a break.
I think so. I needed to talk to adults.
Yeah, and so going to back to tissue.
Yeah.
Back to body stuff.
Biology.
That's great. And fortunate that you found something there, because a lot of that is timing and availability and things like that too. So, so how long were you in D.C. then?
Close to 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he decided to separate, and I'm from Nebraska, he's from Minnesota, so we were looking for come back towards the Midwest, and he found a job in Madison, so that's how and my sister lived in Madison.
Okay.
And so that's how we ended up here. In Sun Prairie. We moved to Sun Prairie, but
And you've been here
We've been here a long time now. We moved in 2001. So.
Yeah, that's
so my kids grew up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when your daughter was born here then, obviously.
Yeah, my youngest daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. Surprise. And like I said, she knows all that, so.
Of course. Yeah, and so they're all out of the house now?
Yep.
Okay.
My youngest one just graduated from college.
Okay.
Last year. So, yeah.
So off they go.
Yeah.
So what's that like?
Well, it's interesting. I talk about when my kids were younger, you're always worried about them falling, or, you worry about them all the time. Well, as adults, you still worry about them all the time, but different things.
Right.
My son works for UW in the veterinary school.
Okay.
My youngest one works for the state of Nebraska in the Department of Transportation. She got a job. And my oldest worked at the University of Minnesota. And I said,
my gosh.
I know, I'm like, and that, I'm not having any more kids. I can't afford the rest of the Big Ten. So
they're repping all over the place.
yeah. So she worked with the disabilities program at the university. My oldest, my son, as I mentioned, and my daughter. So yeah, so they're all over. It's good. I see people with their little kids, and I'm like, oh, I miss some of that. I don't miss all of it.
No.
I see the tantrums. I don't miss it. My kids are really good at tantrums. But yeah, you kind of miss it, but you also kind of enjoy, like, it's my time now, you know. And
it's a graduation of sorts. I mean,
Yeah.
you're still the parent, and you still are there for
And
their
they still
needs.
call me, and I'll tell you that some of the best calls are my son when he was, I don't know if he probably won't watch this, but he won't. But he finally got his full-time regular job, and he called me one day right after that, and he goes, I don't know how you did that. He goes, I got home, I'm so tired, I can't even make dinner. He goes, how did you make dinner for all of us? I go, I don't know, I just did it.
Well, this is the appreciation you had for your parents when you realized,
yeah,
you know,
so
once you're out there and you have to do it on
does
your
come
own.
back, maybe for a while, but
Yeah. And interesting that he went into veterinary sciences, and you
Well,
were
he
curious
he
about
works
that,
for
or?
the facility, so he's
Okay.
not active, but he's
Oh, I
in
see.
the school working.
Yeah.
He keeps telling me I could come for a tour. I go, I would love to.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
that'd be
you know,
interesting.
you talk about passions. That's my passion, is my dogs and animals, and it's just what I
Did you
like.
have pets growing up too? I was going to ask.
Yeah, we had
so.
dogs. Actually, we had a dog, we had a rabbit, we had guinea pig. What else did we have? We never had cats.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah, kind of a variety.
Yeah.
So.
And my kids did too, so we've had dogs ever since. I've always had a dog. And I thought it was good for my kids to learn about taking care of another being.
Right.
A lot of times I had to be the backup, but yeah. So, and they're all dog lovers now. Actually my daughter and my son have cats. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody's got a pet, so that's good.
Except my youngest one, because she lives in an apartment with a
Okay.
roommate. And
Yeah.
someday she wants one, but I said that's a responsibility and an expense, and you really need to think about, you know. So she's kind of holding off.
My dad was in the Air Force, you mentioned that, and we didn't have pets. We moved very often.
Yeah.
And so he always said it's just, what he said was it wouldn't be good for the pet. And when I think back to that, I think he meant him. I don't know. As a parent, I kind of understand that.
Oh, sure.
But so we didn't have pets growing up, and so you know,
Right.
I'm not a pet person.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't mind being around them, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I think it would be fun to have a dog, but I don't know. It's just different. It's a
Okay, so
different way
this
to
is
grow
what I always
up.
tell people.
Yeah.
If you have teenagers, to get a dog, because then somebody will be happy to see you when you get home.
Yeah, hey,
My
that's
dogs
a
are
good
always
tip.
happy
Yeah.
to see me.
Well, and that unconditional thing,
Yeah.
and even for my own kids, I think, you know, it might be nice for them to have, you know, just something that is constantly, you know, affectionate and around
Yeah.
and available
Yeah.
and will listen.
But they are a lot of work and expense, so
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. So now, so the kids are out of the house, and so, can you talk a little bit about? I mean, we know the first couple jobs, but maybe where you went from work.
Sure.
So when you came up here,
So we
kids were still little, and then you were gonna have
so
another
we
baby.
moved to Sun Prairie, and I mentioned my youngest was a surprise, and I had, when we left DC, I got rid of all my baby, the crib, everything. I had nothing, and I wasn't working. So my husband was working, so I hit every garage sale I could find.
yeah.
It works fine. A lot of those clothes and stuff are like new.
For sure. And Sun Prairie does
A
a
good
great
Yeah,
job
that
at
we found
garage
the
sales.
you know, that yearly garage sale.
Yeah, it's great.
And she didn't know any different. She was a baby, so.
Yeah.
And so I was at home with my kids. So we moved, what did I say? We moved here in September. No, we moved from DC in May, so it was Memorial Day. And then I was home with my kids. Again, I knew no one. You know, that's really hard for me. I do like having my alone time, but, you know, and I say this with affection, but I could only come up with so many lunch meals planning a day, you know, a week or whatever. Like, you know, that was kind of the most challenge I had for the day. And so I decided to go back to work. Plus, financially, it was a good choice for us. And I I got another job here for the Musculoskeletal Transplant Foundation.
Okay.
And they contracted, so they were based out of New Jersey, but they had a satellite office in Madison.
Okay.
And what my job was there, we worked with the UW also cooperatively, and organ and tissue donors. So our agency handled just tissue donors, but my role was to do education in the schools and kind of like a marketing position.
Okay.
And going to the hospital, not the schools, I said schools, hospitals.
Hospitals.
And so like Eau Claire and Wausau and Stevens Point. So I was driving a lot every week.
Oh, sure.
And that was my job there. Then my position was eliminated. So I've had that happen to me a couple times too. And I'm started looking for a job, and I started working at hospice. It's now called Grace, but it was hospice care at the time in Fitchburg, doing similar education marketing about hospice. And then my kids were in school, and my youngest she was 12, and things changed at my position there. Plus, driving down to Fitchburg every day was kind of a hassle, especially in bad weather. And a position came open in Sun Prairie at the Colonial Club, and I applied for it, and I was able to take my youngest daughter out of daycare. She could stay at home. I was only like 4 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I've been at the Colonial Club ever since. So that was 2013.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've been there a little while.
Yeah.
And so can you talk about hospice and organ donating, people kind of have a familiarity with that, but can you talk about what the Colonial Club is for people who don't know or who might be watching?
Absolutely. So the Colonial Club's a social services agency. Basically, we do programs for senior adults 55 and older in the building, which is what I coordinated. So like they do bingo and cards and entertainment. And then we also do services in the community of all Northeast Dane County. So we do home delivered meals, so Meals on Wheels people refer to. We also do case management. We have an adult day center, and we have the nutrition program. Not only the meal delivery, but we also have meals on site every day, Monday through Friday for lunch. So our mission is to help older adults stay in their homes.
Got it.
So that people can stay there as long as possible. And I recently, this year, the end of January, changed positions. So, and we have my old position is open, and I'm now over the meal program, the adult day center, all those services I just mentioned.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm still learning it, and I still have my old position, so it's kind of been a little
Congratulations
confusing.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. We're getting there.
So your former position is open. You're looking to fill that. So you're wearing a couple of hats. Right now. Yeah. And then you actually come here and do a show too. We talked a little bit about, and can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah. Well, so we do the commentator, or I do the commentator, and I bring a guest with me. So I have usually a volunteer, once in a while a staff member, and we talk about what's going on at the Colonial Club. And every once in a while I'll be at work and somebody says, "Oh, I saw you on TV," so I know people are watching it.
Celebrity.
So, and we can provide not only activities, but we also provide information and how do I sign up for at the food pantry? How do I sign up for energy assistance? Those kinds of things.
Gotcha.
So we also have those programs, and then we do educational programs. Later today, I have an author coming talking about traveling. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great support for the community.
A lot of seniors are alone. Maybe they've lost their spouse, their kids have moved. We're a much more mobile society than we used to be.
For sure.
And a lot of them, this is their outlet to meet people, see people, make friends, stay active. Some of our seniors come every day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice to have that resource for them. Yeah. So, okay, so a couple of things just coming out of that. Many of those people are moms that were there in the show as moms. And so, do you have anything, just to talk about? I can imagine, what it's like. I haven't been there to be part of the activity, but I think we don't make a lot of room in our lives to talk about what's happening with the senior population. There comes this time where just okay, you're helping support that population through the Colonial Club, but this is still a huge part of our community.
Right.
And I think oftentimes, we're involved in what we're doing in our families, and of course, our schedules are very busy. But what is what are the conversations like, or what are the interactions like? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. And I'm starting to go through this myself a little bit in that, we think about our kids and how much we love our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my son one time told me, Mom, he was like 10. He goes, I'm always going to live next door to you. I'm like, oh, I wish that was true.
Yeah.
But, they grow up, they get busy. And so the older population, it really varies. There's some kids very involved with their parents, but there's some that their kids don't call them very often, or they don't see them, or they're far away. And I try to think about like my kids now, and if I didn't hear from them, you still love your kids, even though they're older.
Right.
You still want to be, you have to let them have their own lives, but you still want to hear from them once in a while.
Right.
I always think you got a big investment in those adults, and
for sure.
So we see some that they're pretty lonely because they don't hear from their kids, or for some people they have, there might be a family rift or something like that, and you just, I don't know. I try to always look at it as we all have our struggles, we all have our things we're dealing with, and the older, that's me and you in how many years?
Right, I know.
I saw a thing on social media about your grandmothers, and it was all these young women sitting in school with their mini skirts on, and like that was your grandma, So just to keep that in perspective, I always like to ask them, what did you do before you retired? You just learn all kinds of things. I think we were talking earlier about the lady that went in the 1940s, her and her sister were 17 and whatever, and moved off to D.C. to work at the FBI. I'm like, wow, that took courage, back then. But one lady,
the 40s?
A letter probably took a couple weeks to get home. One lady, I asked her, she had 12 or 13 kids, and she raised them on the farm, and that's hard work. So I love asking people, what did you do? And usually I'm asking the lady, there's more women anyway, but asking them what they did. One lady was in the Air Force.
Yeah. That's so nice, because when do they get a chance to talk about that? One
of them was one of the first nurses in the Air Force during World War II.
Jeez.
Yeah, she has since passed away, but I just love hearing that stuff, and I think how brave they were in a time when we didn't have social media or instantaneous communication, that they went off and did that stuff.
Right, and as women then too, that wasn't common.
Right. And then they came back and had families, so. Yeah.
Because we're capable.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting. I mean, you really could. Okay, I should ask too. Can people volunteer at the Colonial Club?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, we need volunteers.
And what do the volunteers do there?
So, no one lives at the Colonial Club, which is a common misconception. So everybody's coming from the community, and our volunteers help things with like delivering meals. They might be a receptionist in the main office. We have greeters. We have volunteers who help at special events. We also need volunteers to help with medical rides, to help seniors maybe go grocery shopping, because a lot of them don't drive.
Right.
And transportation is a real issue for that population.
Oh, for sure, yes. Yeah. Definitely. So, and is there an age, like a starting age you take volunteers?
If they're with their parent, we'll take young people. Usually they're in school, and our hours are during the week.
Oh, during the school day.
But if it's like, we also have teenagers. I've worked with the high school that have helped do snow shoveling, and they can do it on their schedule, because a lot of our seniors live in their homes, but they can't shovel snow, or to do yard cleanup. So there's lots of opportunities.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And good for people to know and hear that. Okay.
And we have parents come with their kids, and in my whole career, we talk about that. I've worked in nonprofits all my life, so my kids have grown up with me volunteering them for things, which I don't know if it's good because now they're like, yeah, I don't want to volunteer. I'm like, well, maybe someday you will again.
Okay, but they put their time in it.
They did.
You know, because some people, they don't do it when they're little and then they don't do it when they're older.
Yeah,
So
and I felt it was important for them to see the importance of volunteering and community. And, you know, there's some people out there who are really struggling. And so what we can do to help our community, you know, why not if we can help them?
Well, if you help your community, it helps you. I mean, you live there. You're not removed from it.
Right.
You know, so it will affect you indirectly at some point. Yeah. So talking about just motherhood and, you know, your journey, are there things, okay, let me ask you this. Were there moments, and it could be retrospect too, because I think that's really, we talked about that, how you identify how did you get through something, but did you have any moments where you sort of, it was a defining moment as a mom where you're like, I'm all in. Like, I recognize that I'm all in. And I'll give you an example. Like, one of mine would be, you know, if one of my kids had to have surgery, and you start to really, the person becomes this person you're responsible for, like their life is on the line, and you realize the strength you're going to have and that you have, and then you fully commit to that child, to this effort, to motherhood, and there you are. And then after that, you know. And some of that can be when you just have your baby, you know, and some people hold that baby and they're just like in it, fully committed. Some people are just like, what, you know, I had C-section, so it's like, I feel it hurts, you know, like, it does and hurt. I love my baby, but like, you know, you're just in a major surgery too. So, do you have any moments like, and again, your story, you know, we don't have to talk about.
I think, you know, that's a good question. There probably are other ones I can't think of, but when I was pregnant with my first daughter, like I said, I had complications. My blood pressure had went up. I had gestational diabetes, and so they put me on bed rest. And I think that was one of them. Like, I will do whatever I have to do to make sure this baby's going to be healthy as it can. In fact, she asked me one day, I don't remember what she asked me. I said, yeah, I even gave up caffeine when I was pregnant with you. Now, that for me is huge.
So understand that sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that might be one of them. When I was like, I would have quit my job. I did anything I had to make sure that baby was healthy. So
yeah, and just that commitment, and when you're tired and it's like too much, just
I had to take off work. I had to, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to give up a lot of stuff at that moment. At that time, I felt like I was. But
well, in bed rest, if you're used to moving, oh my gosh, I would have.
Thank goodness I didn't have to do it long. I had to do it like a week. And I remember saying to the doctor, I go, well, I can get up and do. She goes, no, you can't move. You can get up and go to the bathroom. That's it. And I'm like, that was hard.
Oh man,
especially when you're busy. You know?
If you're a person that you know, moves and likes to get things done, and
then
you're probably a person who needs a break like that. But like reconciling that and taking that on is just like that's making me jittery thinking about it.
It was. Plus, I had terrible morning sickness. Oh, terrible! It was like all day sickness with her.
Oh my gosh!
The first 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, those times are so hard, but they're temporary.
Right.
And I think in parenthood too, if you can try to remember that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's sometimes just the middle of the night. You know, one of my kids still didn't sleep, I've been awake, let's be honest, for quite a few years.
I've been awake for 30 years.
Yeah, don't you feel like
that?
It's
way.
like,
because then when they get older, you worry about where they're at.
Yes. So we're just awake.
Yeah.
And I really never had, you know, kids who like, part of that was my problem because I was like, well, are they asleep? Are they breathing? Are they awake? And then poke, and then they're disrupted. So I'll take credit for that.
I think I've been there.
But so, and then multiple little kids. So it's like, okay, you're up with one and here comes the other one. And it's the middle of the night. No one else is awake and you're the only adult and you're just tired and they need something. And man, if you couldn't realize in those moments the importance of digging deeper, you really could fall apart.
Yeah.
And I think that does happen
Especially
to
when
people.
you don't have sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, sleep deprivation is no one's friend.
My son used to, I can remember we had moved here and he was, oh gosh, he was probably 4 or 5, old enough to be up, but not, you know, and it would be like 5:30 in the morning,
Sweet.
and he'd be like, Mommy, can I have breakfast? And he'd call it breakfast. And I learned, I put like cereal bars and stuff on a really low shelf. Like, okay, you can go get your bar, and then I'll get up and make your breakfast.
Yeah, it's just so, I know. Because you have to teach them, too, to be resourceful.
Yeah.
And like 5:30 is a hard time.
Yeah.
Because probably you didn't sleep and like morning's not quite.
Right.
But then you just love that person so much.
I
that
still
little
remember he was
person.
so cute, you know. That's I always say that's what gets you through those moments because they're so darn cute.
Yeah, hang on to those cute moments. Put those on repeat.
Yeah.
So when they're giving
And I
you a hard
did
time.
learn, one of my pieces of advice is this stage, what you just said, it will go away.
It does.
It goes away. So whatever is driving you crazy right now, it will go away. Now something else might come along, but that one thing, like them not sleep, like my daughter had, my oldest daughter, man, she was a problem now that I think about it. She had colic.
Call her after the show
I will.
and tell her this.
She had colic. So I remember, and she's 30 now, so
She's out of it.
I don't know, but don't hold me to this, but I was so desperate that I would go lay on the couch, I'd take the baby swing and set it right next to me, I'd put her in the swing, and I'd lay there on the couch and just push the swing. I was desperate.
For sure.
And that was the only thing that would make her stop crying that I knew of at that time, you know.
Yeah. That colic, I didn't have babies that had colic, but I mean, that is wild to just nonstop. You know, it's already nonstop, but then that incessant crying.
And
like
you didn't know what you could do. I used to say I'd go stand in the corner of my head if I thought it would help, but she would just, it was 5 to like 10 every night.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, you do the best you can. And you ask the doctor, and you know, and you take the guidance they give you, and
and sometimes it's like, okay, are their basic needs met? Did I feed them? Did I change them? You know, have they slept?
They
Maybe
burped.
with colic, probably they didn't sleep, so then you have to remember that's probably a contributor, or maybe not. But, you know, set the baby in a safe place and take a breather.
And I didn't really sleep, but I was there, you know, like at least she wasn't crying.
Just rest or relax for a second.
Like I said, sometimes you just do what you can with what you know. And like my kids now, but like, well, why did you do that? And I'm like, because at that time, was the expert's advice, and I always tried to follow the. You know, I'm a constant learner, so I was always reading and doing everything I could to, you know.
Yeah, do the best you can with what you have, and
That's
when you know better, do better.
Yeah.
So okay, so now Colonial Club, and you do the show here, and any bucket list items or things you still have that you're aspiring to do?
Bucket list. I said someday whenever I retire, I talked about my love of dogs, I'm going to work somewhere with animals.
Yes.
I'm in Sun Prairie Rotary, so I'm the president this year. So that keeps me busy.
For people who don't know what Rotary is, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, Rotary is a service organization. It's actually international, and service, our motto is service above self. So we do projects to raise money, and then we turn that money around to donate back to the community.
Okay.
And we do a lot of different things. We've had pancake breakfasts to raise money. We're having like a Kentucky Derby party in May to raise money. And then we've funded things like anti-bully programs in the schools. We've given out scholarships in the schools. Rotary's actually funded the Colonial Club. If you see the bus driving around, a van driving around, you'll see the Rotary logo, contributed money to that. One of the things we're looking at now is the murals are going to be going on. There's a mural project that's going to happen in June, and it's right behind Full Mile. There's
got
a big
you.
cement wall. So we're looking at sponsoring an artist for that. So it's all about community, and then they also do international projects.
Okay.
So.
And if people want to be part of that, is anybody invited to be
Absolutely.
part of that?
We meet Tuesday mornings at the Colonial Club at 7 o'clock, so you got to be an early bird.
You have to want to get out.
And for me, that worked great. Thankfully, my husband helped get the kids to school and daycare and all that. But then I could just go off to work afterwards.
Right.
So there's all different Rotaries, different communities. Wanakee, DeForest, Sun Prairie, they all have one. So just kind of, you can just come and sit in on a meeting and see what, if you like it. We have actually beans and cream. We have their pastries there, and we most weeks have a speaker, and you can go to our website, Rotary.com, sunprairierotary.com, to see what the schedule is for speakers.
Oh, nice.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, this last Rotary meeting, we had Erin from the city talk about the voting process, which it's always educational. I love it.
Sure.
We learn a lot. And then our Rotarians sometimes will speak because they have a business or an interest.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So we're all about service. And it really, I always say, I joined Rotary. A lot of people join for business connections. I stay because of the people, because they're pretty awesome people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then you're a community within a community too. So, yeah, that's a great way to participate. If you can get up that early.
It's worth it.
Once
You'd be
you're up.
surprised how many people show up at Rotary. And people are always like, I can't believe it. I'm like, it's worth it,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember coming there to talk about my books, and it was it was like one of the first things I did with other people in a room after COVID.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2021 maybe. And so that has it just has a special place because there were people in a room.
Yeah,
we could talk.
Yeah.
And
so COVID was hard.
But it was early, and that was okay. Once I was
Get
out
your
there,
day
it was good.
started.
Yeah. It was nice out. So so I enjoyed that. But you've done a lot of, it seems like you've been aimed at service and support of others, just really in your life.
Yeah.
And
kind of happened that way. I can't say it was how I planned my life, but I'm glad I did. I like it.
Yeah,
so,
and you're still, you're still going strong doing that. So, do you have any, thinking about motherhood and even, being a woman with personal and professional pursuits, or even finding that balance, or any other advice or anything you would tell moms who might be watching that are, I don't know, maybe they're in the throes of it, or maybe they're struggling, or...
You're not the only one. You got other, and to seek out other moms. I still do that with my adult children. I have friends that we talk about, oh gosh, what about this? What about that? And you don't have to be perfect. I always thought I had to, I always compared myself to other moms who maybe weren't perfect, but on the outside you felt like, oh my gosh, they got it all together.
For sure.
I would be like, I don't know how they do that, you know? And I found sometimes that was not helpful to me to compare myself. And we all are different. We all do it our own way. You're doing the best you can, and you don't have to be perfect.
I agree with that. And I think some people just naturally are very comfortable with who they are, and they're confident, and they're not insecure, and they don't do the comparison thing. I don't know who these people are, but they're out there.
They're out there.
And I think sometimes with age, you start to learn that that can't really be possible, that somebody always has it together. You just can't. And so, I always kind of was a person who wanted to project, my best self and project that things were together. And a lot of times I feel like they are, but if they weren't, I wasn't, projecting that. So
we're good at hiding things.
Yeah, or just just look over here because that's a tantrum. We're not gonna look at that. Or whatever part of my life isn't totally together. But I've learned just in talking to moms here, and just in life coaching, and just trying to see the world comprehensively, that you can't have it all together. And actually, the adventure of life is to not have it all together, And so when you feel like everything's balanced, as a human, you'll create chaos just so you have something else to solve. And so to invite those challenges in, sometimes before they can find you. But the adventure of life is experience something new, like you talked about. You know, with even your first job, you know, do you have any problems with flying? And you're like, no. Also, you didn't know.
I didn't know what I
but
didn't know.
you were up for adventure, you know. So.
And that was hard for me. I mean, that took a lot of my energy to do that, but I'm so glad I did. It started the first, like my aha moment was when I was in high school. And like I said, I was a real introvert. I was kind of a academic. I was into studying. And I decided they were having the tryouts for the graduation speech.
Okay.
You know, it was, I think the valedictorian did get up there. But anyway, I don't know what possessed me, but I tried out and I won.
My gosh.
And I'm like, oh, now I got to do this. And so our graduating class was like 450.
Oh, that's
we
good
were in the
size.
city auditorium. So it was pretty big for somebody 18.
That's a big
I wasn't
crowd.
even 18 yet. I was. That was kind of my aha moment. Like, okay, if you really, really put yourself out there, you can do it. And sometimes you can't,
Right.
but that's okay.
Well, then you learn that by doing instead of by assuming.
Yeah.
So better to try.
And my other piece of advice, I think, for moms is to be careful, try not to judge other moms because, like, I'll be at Target and I'll see a little kid crying. And my first thought is, oh, I'm so sorry for you.
I feel this.
I do, you know, because there's so many people want to give you advice on how you should raise your kids or what you should be doing. And, you know, if you didn't ask for the advice, then, you know, do the best you can. And sometimes you can ask for advice, but don't unsolicited. I don't know. I just feel like we get too much judgment.
I agree totally. And before I had kids, I fully was that person. I mean, I was like,
aren't we all?
They should. They don't have any control of their kids.
Yeah.
Like, my kids will never. And, okay, my kids didn't throw fits in public, but I definitely had definable moments in my life where, I don't want to call my kids out, but I was like, oh my gosh, I remember specifically at a theater one time just judging this mom so hard because her kid was throwing a fit. Now I understand, and you can't go back, and she didn't know anyway, but it's like, man, I did not know what I was talking about. I was uninformed.
Well, and each kid's different.
Yes.
Like, you know, I have my overachiever. I have my very artistic daughter. In fact, my poor son, you know, you go to the doctor and they're like, they do the drawing. I don't know if they still do that, but for developmental. And so my oldest is very artistic and very talented. So when my son went and he did his little stick drawing, I'm like, oh my God, there's something wrong with him. He hates that story, but I'm like, I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know that she was talented at that time. And
that was a different gift she had. It wasn't like a standard you had to meet.
So I have my overachiever, my artist, and my middle kid. And I can say that because I'm a middle kid. Yeah. We get neglected, you know.
I'm the oldest sister.
But
I fall in the middle because we have 5.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But I never really saw myself as like a middle child. I just saw myself as like, you know, the boss, the older. Whatever.
Well, we can be bossy too.
So, okay, well, I think this has been good. I think there's been a lot of information shared here who in the local community people, you know, can understand better what the Colonial Club is and how to get involved with that and what that's for, and to really highlight, you know, this population in our community, you know, of seniors, however you can get involved and support them. We wouldn't be here without them, and that will be us one day, so we should, you know, pay it forward.
And if you have an older parent in your life and you need help, that's what we're there for too. Because I had to deal with that when my mom was sick and my kids were young. You know, what resources are out there for people like us who have older parents that maybe we're trying to help? You know, we have case management. We have that there for people. So if you're a mom with young kids, and I was one of those, and it's hard.
Yeah, that's a lot because you're parenting,
caregiver.
but you're also supporting, and so that's good to know too that that's a resource for that as well. And then the Rotary, if they want to get involved with that.
Absolutely.
And they should tune into the local channel to see your show as well.
The commentator.
The commentator.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of good stuff going on, and your kids are out there making an impact.
I
and
hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
this has been so good. I'm so happy you came on.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't forget to keep your perspective, but be willing and be adventurous to step into somebody else's like we did with Laura today. Be resilient, show up even when it's hard, and it's hard most of the time. So get up and go anyway. Continue to pursue your goals and assist your kids and those in your lives with pursuing theirs. Remember that you're not alone. You're in a group of about 2 billion of us worldwide, and we are here for you. Thank you.